Hey everyone, I'm going to kick this off now. I might admit more people as they join. Just a quick reminder to everyone to, I can mute you from here, but just to have your mics muted for now. I'll absolutely happy to take questions as we go, but if you could pop them in the chat box, that would be great. And then I'll likely address those in the end unless they're really relevant to what I'm talking about on the way through. So just a little bit about what this is. So welcome to the Republic of Work Lunch and Learn series. These are every Tuesday at 1 p.m. in webinar format. And there's a variety of topics to learn from. So you can check out any of those upcoming events on the What's On section on the Republic of Work website, so republicofwork.com. So today, what I'm going to do is, this is very much your Google Ads, getting started with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going through a live setup of an account essentially. So you'll be able to see in the moment what digital marketers like myself do. And so just a little introduction to myself as well. I'm a digital marketing strategist based here in Cork. My name is Jennifer Bryan. I run a company called J Digital. We specialize in performance marketing. What that means essentially is that we run Facebook and Google ads primarily for businesses who are looking to grow their online presence, or maybe they already have an online presence but want to get more out of it. So essentially, Google Ads is one of the primary tools I use for that for my clients. And what Google Ads allows you to do is put your business in front of people who are searching for something relevant to your business. Maybe they're searching for a product relevant to your business, or you can target them not based on their searches, but through them being an audience that may be relevant to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen there now, and we'll get started in Google Ads so I can show you. So this is Google Ads. This is the Google Ads interface. When you set up an account, this is what you will be initially met with. This, as you can see here, test, 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 and all of these things, you can ignore that. I just had to pop those details in just to set up a dummy account for this presentation more so than anything else. So when you start with your Google Ads, you're actually going to be met with this view. And it can look a little bit daunting from here, but when you set up your Google Ad account for the first time, make sure to click on this switch view button. That's the only thing you really need to take into consideration when you set up an account new. This is due to Google Ads. More and more over time, Google Ads is moving towards what they like to call an automated or smart system, which essentially means that what they're trying to do is automate a lot of this, as opposed to you having a lot of control over the adverts. It works really well in some circumstances, and it's not up to par in others. So still for now, I'd highly recommend switching the view so that you have this full setup view of all of these different options that you can see here on the side and on the top. You just want to make sure that you have access and control of everything, especially for the time being. The first thing that you should definitely look at when you're setting up your Google Ads account, or even if you have one set up already, is your tools and settings. This is where you have your things like your keyword planner, your audience manager, your bid strategies, your shared budgets. Keyword planner, audience manager, shared budgets, policy manager, and access and security and conversions are probably the most important ones for getting started. Your keyword planner essentially allows you to tell Google what kind of keywords that you'd be looking to bid on, and it will tell you, based on past data, how much those keywords have previously cost people. That will give you a good indicator essentially of what your cost per click is going to be. So it's a really good tool to allow you to start to understand, right, how much is this going to cost me? So say, for example, like you sell something on your site that is 100 euros. So you need to figure out how much can you spend in Google Ads for one sale. Can you give Google 20 euros before the sale comes through? Your cost per click is very much going to become part of that process. So when you're thinking of your keyword planner, say for example, a cost per click was 50 cents, you need to take into consideration, right, okay, that's the cost per click. how much is it going to cost me to get 1,000 of these people through to my site, and what is my average conversion rate from there? And that will give you a good indicator to, before you get started with anything, on how much this is actually going to cost you. Bear in mind always that Google Ads is a bidding platform. So the prices fluctuate from day to day, from hour to hour, even minute to minute. They don't change dramatically unless something dramatic happens. So say for example, there was say for example, COVID is one example. All of a sudden I could guarantee you that very much the bidding on words like face mask probably spiked dramatically because of it being a bidding system. But your day-to-day management, typically I wouldn't see a huge fluctuation in that unless something significant happens where there's a sudden influx of searches for those terms. So your keyword planner there is where you can get started on planning out your words. If you have campaigns already running and you want to add in more words, or you want to look at different bidding strategies, you can have a look at the performance planner. That will essentially allow you to plan forward based off your past data. You can't use the performance planner setting up your account for the first time. It's only it's an after the fact tool. So it's after you're set up, you've run your campaigns for a couple of weeks, even longer, and you want to know what more can you get out of it. You can use the performance planner tool to allow you to have a look at that. If for any reason that your adverts get banned or restricted, there's lots of Google Ads rules, same as there is with any advertising platform. You can take a look at your ad preview and diagnosis tool here. The other thing that the ad preview and diagnosis tool allows you to do is simulate a search in a certain region. So say, for example, you had your adverts running in Ireland and you wanted to see if they were showing or if there was any issues there. You can use this ad preview and diagnosis tool as well. The next thing that you should set up, and I'd always go to my tools and settings and set up the bits and bobs in here before I'd ever start setting up actual campaigns. Firstly is audience manager. So your audience manager is where you can start creating your audiences. There's some really good audiences that you can create in Google Ads. One of them, and I think it's one that a lot of people don't know about, is you can create an audience based on lookalikes of people who have visited other websites. So you can put in URLs of lots of different websites that would be hyper relevant to your business and create audiences based off those. So say, for example, I'm a digital marketer, so I could look at, okay, who are the big agencies in Ireland, and let me take a look at those audiences. So that would be a strong strategy in my line of business. That would be dependent on across different industries. So say, for example, if you were running something like courses, then you might want to look at things like the UCC website or other websites that would be very, very relevant. The other thing as well is that you could take specific links. So say, for example, the UCC audience in its entirety might not be relevant for your course, but certain courses on their website might be relevant, and people visiting those pages might be more relevant to you. So think about that a little bit strategically. The other thing that audience manager wise that you can create, but it is restricted to your account having a certain amount of spend already spent on the account in order to build up that trust with Google. But you can create what's known as a custom list, and essentially you can upload a list of your customers, a list of email addresses. It will match those to people, and you can do one of two things with those. You can target just those people with your adverts, or alternatively you can say to Google, okay, I want people who are quite similar to these. Or in some circumstances where it's relevant, you could use that audience as an exclusion point. Exclusion points are really, really, really good on Google Ads. You don't want your ads showing to someone who's already converted in some circumstances. Of course, retail stores and things like that, it doesn't really matter if someone has converted already, because it's okay for them to come back and convert again. But some industries, once you're in the door, if it's a lead generation kind of system, you don't need them to sign up again. So it's a good way of looking at your audiences, and including and exclusion is really important there. So make sure you're including what you want, but make sure that you're excluding what you don't want. Your bid strategies then, I'm going to go into those in a little bit more detail when I show you kind of a campaign setup. Your negative keyword list, again, I'll show you that in a minute. And your shared budgets. your shared budgets are a great way of saying to Google, okay, this is all I want to spend in a day. Can you distribute that amongst my campaigns accordingly? This is good if you're starting off on a low budget. So say you want to put in your €10 a day, you can set up your campaigns afterwards and apply your budget from the shared budget as opposed to setting up a different budget for every campaign. So you know that your maximum is only coming from your shared budget. The most important thing that I would take away about budgets in Google Ads is, say, for example, you have a budget of €10 a day. That is going to distribute across the full 30 days. So some days where Google feels like the searches are far more relevant today and there's a lot coming in today more than usual, it will say, okay, I'm taking a few euro from another day, and it might spend more on some days and less on other days, depending on the distribution of searches. And it takes that data primarily from past history. Your placement exclusion list is also really important. This is mostly with your display ads more so than anything else. You really want to think about where you don't want your ads to be seen. So say, for example, you're promoting children's toys. You don't want them to show up on certain websites. You need to make sure that your values and your brand are not being devalued or seen in a negative light with placement exclusion lists. That can be really important. What I like to do is remove the tabloids and things like that straight away, because those you never know what they're going to print. You never know what your ads are going to be associated with. However, like the Irish Examiner, places like that will primarily be for the most part okay. Your bulk actions, then, those are rules and scripts and uploads. This is a little bit more advanced, so I'm going to leave this alone for now. The next thing then is your conversions. You want to make sure that your conversions are tracking accurately. Google learns from every conversion that is met. So if you set up a conversion of a sale, it looks at the data points of that person to clock to itself, depending on the bid strategy that you're using, that person and that data point and all those data points that are associated with that customer are really relevant to your business, and it will actively take that into consideration when other people are searching. So your conversions are not only really important for you to set up so that you know how much return on investment that you're getting from your ads, but secondly, it's so that Google can get a good idea learning from your account as well. Your Google Analytics, you can synchronize it with your Google Analytics and you can import your conversion or your goals from there. So if you already have them set up in there, that is a good way of looking at it as well. The other thing is your attribution. Your attribution is you telling Google when you want a conversion to be recognized. There's lots of different ways of that, but primarily it still all tells you relatively the same information when you're setting out. Your attribution is something that you might look at down the line. Your setup, then, this is just your standard business data, policy manager, access and security. So if you have an agency working with you, or if you want your accountant or someone like that to have access in order to download your invoices and things, you can take a look at your access and security. Your linked accounts, then, those are other tools that you might have linked with your account. Those can be good as well. And your Google Merchant Center, that's when you link your Google Merchant Center account to your Google Ads, and this is the only way for your shopping ads to appear. So if you are selling products, you will want a Google Merchant Center account, and you want your products to be within your Google Merchant Center. That's a little bit of a separate topic, but it is relevant when it comes to the shopping adverts. So if you're looking at getting started with Google Ads and primarily focusing on products, make sure to check out setting up a Google Merchant Center account. So those are the main things to look at in your tools and settings before you get started on anything. I'd always make sure that you have all of your data points in here. So you have your conversion data in, you have your audience manager in, you've done a little bit of keyword planning and things like that. Those are great places to start, especially the keyword planner. As of late, I have found getting a little bit poorer and poorer in terms of its recommended keywords. So what I like to do is, say, for example, I've done a quick search here for Digital Marketing Agency Cork. And what I can do is scroll down to the bottom and I can see searches related to Digital Marketing Agency Cork. Those would be a a good indicator. You can keep searching different ones of those. Different ones will pop up down here at the end, but actually I'm finding across different accounts that this is quite good. So I would recommend having a look at that as well. So the next thing I'm going to do there now is just show you a campaign setup. So all you need to do is just hit new campaign, and you're met with this screen then, which is asking you different things like your sales, leads, website traffic, product and brand consideration, brand awareness and reach, app promotion, or you can create a custom one, or without a goal guidance. But always select here what you actually want. Brand awareness and reach might look like it's going to give you a ton of numbers, and it will give you a ton of numbers in terms of impressions, but it's not going to give you those conversions. If you want sales, you need to click sales. If you want website traffic, isn't going to give you sales, for example. If you imagine these goals are like consumer behavior, so if you want sales, Google will focus on sales, and it will focus on the data points of people who are actively looking for a sale. Their behavior on Google will reflect that, and Google is a very powerful tool. So don't underestimate, don't say, right, I can't really get started with sales because I need to get more website traffic. If you need sales to make your ads viable and to make them profitable, you're going to need to click sales here. So for most people want to click sales, so I am going to click that just to get started. The next ones that you have then are your search, display, shopping, video, smart, and discovery. Your search ads are what I'm going to show you here. There's also display, shopping, video, smart, and discovery. The display ads, those are your visual displays that you see across the internet. I'm sure you've all been followed by booking.com before, and you've seen their banner ads and everything else. Not in a while now with booking.com, but previously. And shopping, video, and all of these different campaigns provide you with different results depending on what you want. But search, shopping are the two that I find bring the most return on investment realistically for most companies. Your display is great if you just want to keep in front of people, but don't expect conversions to come from your display the same way that they come from search and shopping. Video is primarily YouTube based, but your ads can also appear elsewhere. And your smart campaign, again, as I mentioned earlier, Google is really trying to move towards this automated system of things. It's all well and good, but you will have a lot less control over your campaign if you select it. So we're going to choose website visits for this. And here it will ask you to add a tag to your site for at the relevant conversion point. So this would be website sale. I'm just going to skip past this for now because it's not relevant to me, as I don't sell products, but that would be where you set it up on your conversion point. Then you can use a tool like I use this, Google Tag Manager. It's great to set up your conversions. So all you need to do is add your Google Tag Manager account to your website. You can ask your web developer to do this for you, but Google Tag Manager is absolutely great in setting up custom conversions. So as you can see here, I have a few tags already sent in, but it allows you to select from your Google Ads conversion tracking, and then you can trigger it at a relevant point. So you can set up all of these different trigger types. So page view, that could be your thank you page reached, window loaded, a click on a button. There's loads of different things, even a timer feature. So you could even say, I just want someone to get to my site and be on it for more than 10 minutes or more than a certain amount of time. So there's lots of different ways that you can set up your conversions using Google Tag Manager. So it's definitely worth checking out Google Tag Manager. So I'm just going to set this up as search campaign 1. Usually for search campaigns, I turn off the display network. It just doesn't really convert that well. You just need to make sure then that you have your location set right. On your locations, you can see here that there's a targeting people in or show interest in your targeted locations. I don't really want people who show interest in Ireland. That wouldn't be relevant to my business. So I want people who are actually in. So by default, this is set. So it's a good idea to always use that drop down here to make sure that you're looking at actually people who are in. You can also use exclusion points here as well. Your language, English would probably be primarily, Then you can set up some of your audiences from in here if you haven't set them up already. And it's really interesting actually what kind of audiences you can look at. For the most part, if you're doing search campaigns, you're going to be targeting people based off a search term that they did. But if you want to narrow that further, like who they are, their parental status, there's so many different things. You can have affinity and in-market. The main core difference between your affinity audience and your in-market audience is that your in-market audience have shown past behavior of actively looking to purchase or avail of a service in these relevant areas. So you can have a look at this. There's so many different ones of these, so they're definitely worth taking a look at when you're looking at your audiences. What you can also do with your audiences here is you can see you can target or observe them. What's really interesting about observation is that, and I like to set this up on a lot of client accounts as well, is I can show lots of different observation audiences, which means they're not being targeted, but they're being observed. So if someone from that relevant audience shows up, Google will clock that and say, if you had targeted this audience, this would have been your results from it. So you can always take that data away afterwards and go, right, I'm going to set up a campaign targeting that specific audience that's been observed for a while. And that will give you a good indicator then on the performance of that. So it's a good idea to set those up just so that you can really use that data after the fact. Here's your budget. I'm just going to put in €10 a day here, but you can also apply that from your shared budget. Now, bidding. This is every marketer, every strategist, and every account is different, and your bidding strategy is reflective of that. So you can have the main ones here. So your conversions, conversion value, clicks, and impression share. What you select here is, again, like we said at the start, it is what you get. So if you want impression share, that is how you want to take over a certain percentage of the shares on a daily rate. So say, for example, you put in 70% here, you want to be showing for 70% of the time that happens. So the impression share may not get you conversions, your clicks may not get you conversions, they will get you website traffic primarily. Sometimes your clicks are relevant if you don't have conversion tracking set up and things like that. Conversion value is probably one of the best ones as well, because your conversion value, once you set that up, you can say to Google, right, try to get me the most value. This is particularly good for retailers. And the other thing you can have a look at then as well when it comes to conversion is a target cost per acquisition is your target CPA. So that's how much you're willing to spend for a new customer. Your target return on ad spend, this is a percentage. So you can say, okay, for every euro I spend, I want a 500% return on that. So you want your 5 to 1. Your maximized clicks then, that's just getting as many clicks as possible through to your site. Maximize conversions. I like to use this one a lot for shopping ads, just to get the most conversions in. And the one most people are most familiar with, but actually has been pushed to the wayside now a good bit, again, Google trying to move to an automated system, is your manual CPC. Your manual CPC is still good if you want to really have control over every cost per click. You want to manually adapt for that. But you can also, if you're using manual CPC, I would recommend that you tick this box and make sure that you have enhanced CPC selected. What that allows you to do essentially is say to Google, okay, I'm willing to pay 20 cents per click. But on the off chance that you feel that this particular customer doing a search is most likely going to convert and it's definitely worth my time, it will fluctuate the bid upwards to allow for that conversion to come through. If you had it set to manual CPC and you didn't have enhanced CPC selected, it might take that away from you. So it's worthwhile doing your enhanced CPC. It's quite good, in fairness. It doesn't do anything dramatic, but it's worth keeping an eye on. The next thing then that you want to keep an eye on is, or set up, is your site link extensions, your call out extensions, and there's lots of different structured snippets, all of these. I would highly recommend filling out as many of these as possible, because what they do is lengthen your ad more so than anything else. On mobile, if you have all of these set up correctly, you have the ability to take over the entire screen real estate. being the #1 ad. So I'd definitely set up as many of these. The other thing is that a lot of accounts skip this step. They don't add in everything that they possibly can at this stage. And it's probably one of the worst mistakes. Well, it's a good mistake and a bad mistake. It's a good mistake for someone who is willing to take the time and set it all up, because your ad is going to perform better. But if you don't set this up, your ads are a little bit shorter, and you're just letting space to the screen real estate essentially to your competitors more so than anything else. So the next step then is looking at your ad groups. Your ad groups are essentially where you're popping in your keywords. So I'm just going to put in digital marketing consultant here. You want to keep your ad groups really, really neat and tidy. You want to make sure that they're hyper relevant. Don't put in lists of keywords here. And the worst thing that you can do is put in your keywords like this. This is broad keyword input, which essentially means that you are giving Google free reign on your keywords. Your keywords put in like this, Google will take full liberty in what they would like to, what they will show for that keyword when someone searches something they think might be relevant to it. An example of this was like, if you had microphone in here and you were selling microphones, then potentially Google could take that and say, okay, if someone searches for sound engineer, this is relevant. It can be very broad, so make sure to avoid that. What you want to do instead is put in your words like this. And I just keep it to those three would all I'd be putting into an ad group. So what this is broad match, phrase match, and exact match. So what you're telling Google is that, right, it either needs to be exactly this, very close to it, or only a little bit different, essentially. So those three indicators, so your plus symbol, these on each side of your words, and these square brackets, I'm not sure what they're called, but those are what you want to use in your ad groups here. So I'm just going to save that one and continue there. So again, you want to fill out as much of your data here as possible. You can see the number of letters that you have in each section here. So I'd be saying, oh, also a top little tip here is when you're writing your Google Ads, make sure that every letter is a capital letter. Consistently across the board, it outperforms anything else, so it's definitely worth it. So if I was setting this up, I would just be doing something like this. You can just pretend I've filled all of this out nicely, and you can see your ad populating over here. Obviously, you want to try to get to your full 90 here and here. Again, think of your screen real estate when you're setting these things up. You want to make your ads as long and as big as possible. The other thing to bear in mind here too is that sometimes headline 3 is removed on a mobile device. As you can see here, this is a mobile device. So sometimes you will want to create your call to action in headline 2. So that's just worth bearing in mind. The other thing as well is that it'll give you done and create next ad. I'm just going to click done and save and continue for now. Because what you really want to do is, there's a few issues there now that so now that that's live, you can see it here. Yeah, I have my search campaign, digital marketing consultant is the ad group. I can see in here the keywords. Now what I can do is I've hit my maximum CPC in a few hours. When this ad gets reviewed and goes through, I can hover over this eligible status here to check what the average CPC is, so that I can change this to something a bit more accurate if I want. The next thing I really want to do is straight away look at my negative keywords. If someone searched for digital marketing consultant Cork, I do not want them to be looking for a job or anything free. So I can save those in there so that, again, you can make these a little bit more relevant to your business. Once your ads are set up, I would always recommend, so I just set up the one there, but I would make sure that you have all three set up. Make sure that you have another text ad set up and a responsive search ad set up as well. Because what you want to make sure is that Google has a few variations or a few options to show your ads. It will by default show your most high performing one. But what this will allow you to do is in 2 weeks time, you could come back in here and say, okay, this one got most of the clicks and most of the conversions. This one got the lowest. Then you can look at the one that did well and say, okay, what about that ad was different and how can I make that even better? So you can remove one and keep adding in better and better adverts into your campaign. You have to remember as well that Google Ads is like a process of continuous improvement. You're probably not going to nail it off the bat when you sign up and get all of this started first. What you really want to do is set it up, leave it run, always leave things run for 7 to 10 days. Give it that chance to learn. Unless things are going really bad, don't turn it off if at all possible. Get as much data as you can and then go back in and look at it and go, okay, what worked, what didn't, remove what didn't work, and go back in and reflect on what did work and try and make that better so that you're always getting this process of continuous improvement. Again, in here, this is where we could have set up our audiences earlier. But again, what you're just doing here is you can set your audiences up for observation. So what I might do here, that would be a good idea, would be business owners maybe. So I can save an audience there of business professionals. So I can come back to this in the future and say to myself, okay, business professionals performed pretty well. Why don't I just target a campaign directly at them? And I can use that again. I could set up a campaign for display adverts or video adverts and just target that audience after the fact. And maybe the display and video campaigns then might be a little bit more relevant to them. Whereas if we were just starting it from off the bat with your display and video and everything, it could be very difficult to get good conversions from those unless you have good, strong audiences to back them up. Again, I could have a look at the different demographics here. I could say, okay, realistically, anyone from 18 to 24 is probably not going to avail of digital marketing services. I could look at gender, household income. That is primarily relevant to the US market, though. I wouldn't take household income to be truly accurate here in Ireland. And again, you can play with your biddings and settings and everything else once you have it set up. Your search campaigns then, or any other type of campaign, will always have this recommendation button here as well. So what Google will do, I don't have any at the moment, but it will start listing things that maybe you've gotten wrong or maybe could improve your account. These are, take them with a pinch of salt. Take them away, think about them, and implement what you think might actually perform better. It will always do things like increase your budget, but it might have things like you forgot to do a structured snippet, or you forgot to add in some extra links to your advert that might make it longer. Those things, yeah, okay, those need to be done. But just bear in mind that some of them mightn't always be really, really relevant. It might ask you things like to change your bidding strategy and things like that. But what you can always do is create an experiment. So say, for example, if it said to change your bidding strategy, you could create an experiment with the same advert with a slightly different bidding strategy. Leave them run against each other for a week, almost like a split test, and then you'll know very, very quickly if that prediction was accurate. Because you have to remember as well that these recommendations are primarily predictions as opposed to accuracy. So definitely worth bearing them in mind. But certainly if there's anything that would like really change the structure of your ad setup, to run a test as opposed to just making those changes straight off the bat. So that's kind of the primary kind of basic setup of getting started with Google Ads. On the landing page side of things as well, Google associates a quality score with each and every one of your keywords that you set up. So in here, digital marketing consultants keywords. So say, for example, on my website here, you can see that I don't necessarily have anything off the bat that's results driven digital marketing. I actually don't have the phrase digital marketing consultant front and center, and Google will clock that. So you want to make sure that your keyword is, first of all, you're bidding on the keyword, you include that keyword somewhere in your advert, but also that that keyword is fairly relevant on your landing page. That will create your best chances of creating a good quality score with Google. The important thing about your quality score is it's taken into consideration for your bid cost. So say, for example, me, digital marketing consultant, I bid €1 for the term, but I don't have it mentioned on my site. So Google has given me a quality score of 5 out of 10. It thinks this isn't relevant. So my competitor, who does have digital marketing consultant front and center on their website and is doing the exact same thing, bidding €1, they would probably get that click for much lower price for having a higher quality score than I would, even though we've both input euro, we've both input everything the same, except for that small difference in the quality score. Google will really take that into consideration as well. So just make sure that it's called message matching. You're making sure that your keywords line up with your ads, line up with your landing page, and that will always give you the lowest cost. Always try to keep your quality score high, and you can always choose these columns here, and you can have a look at all your different things, your conversions. But what you can do as well is your competitive metrics, your quality score down here. So you can click on quality score. This being a dummy account, a new ad account, it's not going to have any data here, but what you'll start seeing populating here is a result out of 10. So you want to keep that 8, 9, 10 to know that you're getting the best value. If it's lower than that, there's things you need to look at. Also, Google will take into consideration your things like your page speed, your message matching, of course. If your website has a very high bounce rate, if you're having difficulties, if people are clearly having difficulties getting through the site, things like that, they will all impact on your quality score. So there is tools out there. One of my favorites actually is unbounce.com. So if you have a bad website or a website that you're saying to yourself right now, right, that's not going to meet the quality score required to get these good Google ads in, is you can use a service like Unbounce. You can connect your domain to it so that you're still jenniferbryan.ie or jdigital.ie or whatever website you have, and you can create essentially dummy landing pages that are still connected to your website but that are high performing. These are like specifically designed for this purpose. So they're high converting landing pages. It's a drag and drop tool, very easy to use, but I'd highly recommend taking a look at something like this if you feel that your website isn't going to perform to the standards that will meet a good quality score, because it can really dramatically impact on your costs as well. So I'm just going to stop the sharing there now. There we go. So that is how we get started. I have a few questions here in the chat box if anyone else wants to pop them in there. I'm just going to take a look at them. Does Google Ads save those tools and settings for the next time? Yeah, it does. Yeah, so everything you put in there is saved for your next time round. It's your initial setup essentially for the continuation of your campaign. What is the best AdWords strategy to market a COVID-related product, 300, 450 euro to business decision makers, mostly in Munster? COVID-related products could be it's touch and go, to be honest, because they could be restricted very, very quickly. So you will have to keep an eye on them very, very closely to get a good and accurate response there too from Google. But I would definitely just take a step back from it and look at how you can phrase those products in the least in the most policy driven way, I guess. Is this available to view again later? Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be put up on the Republic of Work website after this is finished as well. Perfect. I think that's one more question there. Yeah, so someone just asked me a question there on Google Ad Credit. They actually have an offer on at the moment that's definitely worth checking out, where you can avail of up to 120 euros free once you spend 120 euros. So you have to spend it to get it, but essentially you get 120 euros free. Just Google free Google Ads Credit and it comes up. It's only available for new accounts, but definitely worth availing of. You may as well, because even if you spent €5 a day over a month, that would probably build up to your 120-ish mark anyway. So you're going to get your next month free if you're just getting started. So it's definitely worthwhile. It's applied to your account after the fact as well. So you sign up with Google, you put in your email address, they email you back a code to apply to your payment section on Google Ads. You apply it, and then it will after the fact, it will look back on your account and apply that. What type of campaign would you use for software company reaching out to large enterprises in Ireland? Again, like, think strategically with your audiences here. I mean, like, if you have a list of companies that you know you're going after, like, you should be like driving to get custom lists together of these things. Like, you really, like, the time you spend prepping for your Google ad setup is just as important as the setup itself. So definitely take into consideration looking at lists of people in that circumstance. So definitely take a look at that. Your campaign for use of software, again, that will probably be lead gen primarily. And you need to drive sales to my website and have a charity account. Again, you need to look at why they're going to your site. Do you need to drive traffic to your website because you want to raise funds? Again, that's almost like a sales process again, where they're not buying but they're donating, and there's a payment going through of some form. So just make sure that you look at what you want people to do. You don't just want people to come to your website. That there's no reasoning for that. What you want is people coming to your site to do something. Look at that action and focus your campaign on it. Collect regions where I know the IT companies first. Yeah, take a look at your regions for sure, but even take a look at go to LinkedIn. Like, people share their email addresses publicly on LinkedIn. There's not an issue with like create lists. You need to start really creating lists. What would be an acceptable budget for a month that would get realistic results? That's different for every industry. It's impossible for me to say that. What I would say is start low and incrementally increase. So I would get started. 10 to 50 euro a day is absolutely fine to get started, but even lower if you really want to just dip your toe in the water. But that's very very industry dependent, and always do A/B testing for both. I would always be split testing everything. So that's just a process of continuous improvement more so than anything else. To accumulate from LinkedIn, like that Gmail address is right. Actually, a good tip on your LinkedIn side of things is that if people have publicly shared their LinkedIn, if you go into your LinkedIn account and go to your settings and privacy and then go into data and hit download, it will give you your full list of your connections and their email addresses if they have accepted to share those publicly. So again, this is public data, not private data, so you're not using it for incorrectly. Our charity objective is to help our peers who are now unemployed. Yeah, that's probably lead gen. So in that situation, so you need to look at that focus. You're not just trying to get as many people to your website as possible. You're trying to get as many relevant people to your website as possible. What would be interesting for you actually is to look at LinkedIn for people who are recently unemployed, and start making your lists from there. Again, the lists, all of those audiences, like think of in-market audiences of people who are actively job hunting and things like that at the moment. You just really need to take a step back and go, right, who am I looking for? Why am I looking for them? You'd rather have 10 people visit your website that are relevant than shouting a message at 1,000 people who have no interest in what you're talking about. So just make sure to really think about your audiences, because a small audience of relevant people is going to be so much cheaper than a broad audience of completely irrelevant people as well. That's great, guys. I have time for a couple more questions. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute your mic if you want, and we'll wrap up then.
Actually, Jenny might ask you a quick one over the mic. It's easier to say it
Yeah.
than type it. So if you wanted to set up, so just say you have a Google Suite account, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to set up a Google ad campaign, but it's not necessarily, I mean, obviously you set up things for clients all the time. But if I wanted to direct people, not necessarily, or not make it look like it's from me, do I have to set
Okay,
up
get
another
you.
account, or can I redirect, or do I have to log in and send them somewhere else?
No, so if you have a G Suite account, it's really good actually, because what you can set up is a Google Manager account. And that's what I have, and that's what agencies would have as well. That's what I would use to manage several accounts. So I might have 12, 15 accounts under my name at the moment. So I have a business account and then lots of tiered accounts underneath that.
Okay, and that's part of your Google Suite then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is great.
Brilliant, thanks.
Do you offer to audit an account and task to review the English, which is outsourced? Do you offer to, or I do audit accounts for people on occasion. So feel free to reach out to me if you want me to take a look at it. I'm tasked to review the English, which is outsourced. I'm not sure by what you mean exactly by that, and how do you do that? I'm not sure what that was in reference to with the lists. Is it? Oh, Google Admin. Yeah, if you just Google Google Ad Manager account setup, you can just follow through the steps. It's very, very simple. If you have any Gmail account at all, the process is even easier. It's Google is very much putting everything under the one hood at the moment. Same way as if you have a Gmail address, you'll automatically be logged into YouTube. Everything they own is under their one umbrella. So long as you have a Gmail address, everything else should be pretty step by step after that. That's great, Molly. Perfect. I'll pop my email address in here if anyone wants to get in touch, if anyone has any questions that suddenly pop into your mind afterwards, because I know that these can be, that I felt like I was whirlwinding information, because it's a very broad tool to cover in an hour, but also it's really good when once you get going, once you have your audiences right and your bidding right, it can really grow your business. So hopefully that's helped people there. That's great, guys. Right, I'm going to pop off there, but if anyone needs to email me afterwards, you have my email address there. And thanks for everyone for joining the presentation as well. Bye, guys.